Now we're on to Scythe. I don't have a weapon right now. I have to craft one because I don't use this actively, but I do absolutely love this weapon type. At least for its just raw damage, all of its effects, just great stuff. And actually, he has a pretty good setup there. But we have our basic attack. Oops, good at this game, don't mind me. Which does, you know, damage there. It hits 3 targets even though it doesn't state. Like, I think it says 1 target, but it hits multiple. Yeah, as you can see, tooltip is not correct, so you do hit up to 3 targets with this ability. Does a decent amount of damage, but I'm going to go over why this one is actually not as good as other options. Which actually, you'll notice Sacrificial Sweep goes on cooldown as well when you do this. Let me try and position myself to hit both. Alright, and then if you hit Sacrificial Sweep. Oh, this one I don't think hits. Yeah, this one only hits single target, so yeah, so pretty much that immediately puts us as the worst ability in Scythe. Like, yeah, it does extra damage, but that's so not worth it. You're doing damage to yourself to damage others, and it immediately goes to garbage tier. So let's not even talk about that one anymore. All right, so we're gonna go to Ravage, which, you know, area, root, which I believe only hits 2 targets. It should specify, yeah, it specifies 2 targets. If it hits more, that wouldn't really bother me. It has a decently long cooldown. It has a solid root effect. It doesn't have too much cast time, and you can, I believe, move while doing it, which I'll show you now once it comes back up. You know, you're running after someone, they keep running, you want your team to catch up, and boom, there's the rake. Solid. And we're going to go to handle. Definitely single target. Does not hit multiple targets. You can try and hit multiple targets, which I can show you here. It will not. If I can get both of them in the area, it's probably as close as I'm going to get to hitting both, if it does. See, it'll hit the closest one, so as you can see, it hits from left to right, so we'll hit this one first. But even then, I believe I was closer. So either way, handle bash, solid stun, 1.5 second to 2.5 second, very good for setting up other damaging abilities. So you stun, you hit them, and you know, you're just screwing them up the whole time. Then we go on to hemorrhage chains, which will heal based on the distance that they are from you. So the minimum heal is 40, so obviously you get close, 40, but if you hit them from the maximum range, you get the 160. It has a very low cooldown. It only hits 1 target, but the heal is very handy, and you also get another pull later on, which I'll show you. But all in all, very solid ability, very good for a starting kit, simply for displacement to keep a target in melee range. So that's very handy to remember. We're going to go ahead and go on to Reap and Sow, which the first hit, kind of weak, but it's not why we want it. Like, obviously you can auto attack while doing this and then immediately follow up with a second hit. Very good damage, doesn't cost much of anything, so I mean, you can't really complain about it. You know, it's like, oh no, the first hit sucks, but the second hit does solid damage, and you can buff it up to 280, so I mean, all in all, very solid ability. Definitely recommended for burst. So we're going to switch up some abilities here. Let's go ahead and take that off. We're going to take pretty much everything off, actually. And we're going to start putting on some different abilities. We're definitely going to put on Mental Sweep. As you can see, it starts at 75 versus Sweep 67, which Sweep goes up to 87 versus Mental Sweep's 95, which all in all, Mental Sweep will actually do more damage in every single situation simply because of the fact that mental resistance isn't that much higher than anyone's general physical resistance, and because physical damage is the more dominant, not more dominant, more common damage type to be used, people will be more likely to stack physical resistance anyways. And you could play around with the two, but mental sweep, you know, if you go up to 95 versus sweeps 87, right there you're looking at an 8 damage difference. So they pretty much have to have 10% more resistance in mental than they would their physical, which it's not a thing. They're not going to have 10% more. They're only going to have, say, robe, which I think starts at 50 versus mental's 100 base. So yeah, look at the two. You're only looking at a very small difference there. It's only, you know, 0.5 at the very minimum. I think leather is 75, meaning 7.5%, or it's 100. I'd have to look again. But all in all, mental sweep will just do more damage in general. And let's go ahead and keep burning hook on there. We remove hemorrhage chains, and we're gonna go with one of the last two ones. I guess I'll do hurricane first, and then I'll get mental corruption on here as well. So hurricane, it's a radius AoE damage, so you hit it, huge area. And it slows anyone in the area. It does damage over time, so it will hit your allies as well, so be very careful of that. Its base damage is fairly good. You can move while doing it, but you can't do anything else while you're doing this. So it's debatable on if it's actually fantastic or not. I personally do not care for it, and I would probably swap it out for pretty much anything else, but that's just my personal opinion and should not be considered as a definite. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and obviously mental sweep. Well, let me see if I can position myself. There we go. So, as you can see, it's difficult with this much spread, but you'll hit 3 targets in front of you with ease, and honestly the effect is much cooler looking. So, props to style. Then we're going to go ahead and go to Shatter, which, you know, you hit a target, you know, they take more damage. Let's see. It lasts quite a while as well, because I don't think it states its duration. No, it does not state its duration. But as you can see, that was a huge damage increase. 68, jumping up to 81. Like, no fucking contest. Shatter is amazing damage increase. And it's not just physical, it's also mental. So, I would probably say this is one of those abilities where I would recommend having it on a kit, regardless of the situation. Then we're going to go on to Burning Hook, which it gives you a damage over time effect on a hook, kind of like, you know, your healing hook hemorrhage, but this one does damage over time. Pretty solid for damage, and you could obviously pair the two up so you'd have 2 hooks. Would you need it? I don't really know. You could pretty much decide based on your armor type. If you're splint mail, I would probably say yes, take both hooks. If you're leather or cloth, you could probably get away with having freedom, tumble, captivating sprint, sneak attack, things like that, so you can reposition, get on top of your target, and deal that extra damage. But Burning Hook's still very viable, does a decent amount of damage over time. It lasts a decent amount of time, but it's around like 4 or 5 seconds, so while its base damage is very high, which is very handy, well, base damage over time is high, I would probably say Hemorrhage is superior in the fact that it'll heal you every single time, versus the Dot, which it might give you a kill, but probably not as much as, say, if you can put Shatter on your bar and maybe use one of these other 2 abilities, which I'll go over now. So we have Physical Corruption, which reduces the target's healing received, and it increases your physical resistance. So you sweep, it does some damage, which it does not state the damage, which is actually very annoying. I don't even think it shows up under here. No, see, The damage is not stated on either of these, but they do apply damage. If you shatter them, hit them with this, decent damage. The target will take reduced healing from all sources, including their own heals, which I would say is very strong because it starts out at 50%. And you can see the duration. You know, you have an 8-second cooldown in leather right now, and I don't even have my weapons cooldown, which would add another, I think it's, what is it, 7% cooldown reduction. So I mean, I could probably knock off another second there. So you pretty much can keep a target healing debuffed roughly the entire time. We will check and see if this will hit 2 targets. I doubt it will. Yeah, see, only 1 target. We're going to try and point it more towards our friend over here on the right, but I'm pretty sure it will only hit, yeah, it'll only hit 1 target at any given time. Now, it's not a bad idea to maybe consider taking both, because if you know there's a healer on their team, one, they can't heal themselves for very much. So this is something to remember. Use Mental Corruption, same damage, but it reduces their healing output. So if you see a totem user and there's no staff user, or maybe the staff user and no totem user, or maybe they're just, you know, one's a main healer, one's more damage, you throw it on the main healer, he can't do anything, you throw it on another target, right there between those two, you're looking at a 75% healing reduction, just at level 1. If you max it out, well, you completely remove the target's output on healing, and you also remove any healing that target can receive. So physical corruption versus mental corruption, I would probably say physical corruption is the better of the 2 abilities. As you can see, they don't scale on cooldown listed on the tooltip, at least through ability information of K, which is probably your best bet to find any detailed information, since the tooltips do not provide this basic information such as energy, cooldown, any cast time, etc., etc., etc. But all in all, as I said, physical corruption will probably be superior and better to have on your bars simply because of the fact it reduces healing that that target receives. So no matter what, if you max that out, there is no healing. This is probably one of the reasons why, you know, Scythe is insane damage output. Between shatter, block all healing, that's it. You're generally going to kill that target no matter what, unless somebody has a spear and shield character around that will make sure to cleanse that off of your target. But if you put yourself between the shield and spear and your target, so say he's over here on the right and I stand right here and he tries to cleanse him, he won't be able to cleanse him because I'm the first target. So as long as you make sure you body block him from actually cleansing, you'll keep your debuff on them, it won't be an issue. And even then, if your group is smart, you know, you can use crowd control to keep those 2 away from one another, or even reposition the direct target or reposition him, and it's just all in all an insane amount of damage that you can do. And I think that covers everything under this. Yeah, covers everything under War Scythe. I would probably recommend this weapon type for all beginners, simply because of the fact it's a lot of damage. It has solid self-healing potential. So, you know, you would take your little hemorrhage chains. You'd probably keep physical corruption. I'd probably say ignore the mental corruption. You can use it. It is a situational ability. I would definitely say keep shatter. And then maybe handle bash or ravage. It's a toss-up between those 2. Handle bash will stun, while ravage will root. So I mean, I would probably say handle bash for solo, but at the same time, if you get 2v1 at 2.4 second root on 2 targets is pretty solid, and the base damage is very high and can go up to a considerable amount of damage. That's pretty solid. Or even just going reap and sow for that huge damage portion. I'm very disappointed that Sacrificial Sweep, unlike the other 2 basic attacks that you can slot, and Sacrificial Sweep just does damage to you while dealing a little more damage than the other 2. It's actually very sad. It's I would probably label this as the absolute worst ability in the game, at least because of the fact for this weapon type, you have no use for it after that. So I mean, you'll probably go with a setup like this, or maybe if you don't need the pulls, you can put Reap and Sow on there, or if you want the AoE, you can do Hurricane. I mean, it's all up to you on that, but all in all, very solid weapon line, huge DPS. I haven't even leveled the abilities yet, because I was really just hunting these down. But definitely fantastic bruiser, fantastic DPS, the strongest healing reduction potential in the game, and of course the largest damage for your group as well. So I mean, there's nothing wrong with this weapon line. There's a reason why it was considered overpowered, so you probably should consider that in all aspects. So that's pretty much Scythe in a nutshell.